Hi there, I'm your host McAuley Tucker, and you're listening to The McAuley Tucker Show, the podcast where I sit down with some of the most accomplished and fascinating individuals in the entertainment and business industry. From celebrities to industry leaders, our guests offer unique perspectives and inspiring stories that will educate and inform you. Join me as I sit down with my next guest to cover their humble beginnings, challenges they faced, as well as their accomplishments in life. You are bound to learn something new, so sit back and enjoy the interview. Today on the McAuley Tucker Show, we had the opportunity to interview Hiram Garcia for the very first time. He recently appeared in the new Minecraft movie. He also was involved in the environment industry, and specifically New Zealand. On the show, we sit down to learn more about his life as well as experience in the Minecraft movie. Enjoy the interview. You have a plethora of experience, and so it's really exciting to have this conversation today because you've experienced quite a bit. You grew up a little bit in California, where you eventually pursued environmental science at UC Riverside. I'd love to hear a little bit about this. What sparked your passion specifically for environmental work? And how would you say those earlier years studying that program, studying that course, ultimately shaped the approaches that you do now, whether it be consulting or later, which we'll talk about, working on a movie set?
You know, when you ask a question like that, you want to say, oh, this guy really likes the environment. Well, unfortunately, not so much the case. I started off as an engineer.
Okay.
So my first degree was an engineer because my dad was an aerospace engineer. So I wanted to kind of follow my dad's footsteps. Now, at the time, the aerospace engineering had the biggest drop in employment. Oof. So my first thought was like, okay, if I get this degree, what am I going to do? I can't get a job, but I have a skill set, right? It's that science. Okay, what else can I do with my skill set? Okay, my second choice was chemistry. Okay, and so I did a year of chemistry, and again, building up on that. But when you're going through chemistry, it's like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this job? I don't want to be inside all the time. So at that time, I had a friend who said, why don't you come and try environmental science? You know, it's science, but, you know, you're outside. You know, it was kind of a selling point, right? So I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And once I took it, it was amazing, McAuley, because you kind of see how it affects the whole circle of life, so to speak. It's not just very focused on this. Okay, if I look at this, how does that change the water, which the fish eat, which we eat? Oh, wait, hold on a second. The penny kind of drops.
Wow, that's so cool. That's a really great way of putting it. In such a study, everything is kind of interconnected. And that's really cool. I actually had the honor last week to actually work as a volunteer production assistant on a set here in my town, and I learned exactly that with a lot of things. Even that field of study, everything's connected. Everything relies on something else, and it must have been amazing to be able to find a study like that. And you spent over a decade, I believe, at a Blakely Environmental investigation, I think, before you moved to New Zealand, which you're at now, I believe, in 2012. And I'd love to hear, you know, within that industry and your work, that's a big leap, going all the way to New Zealand. What was it about that moment in your life, personally or professionally, that made you take such a leap across the world? And how did it feel to start anew, kind of within that world?
I will tell you, it was scary. So in California, we were working on a large contract, which we had lost.
Oh.
So I had thought immediately, I'm probably going to get laid off or made redundant, as they call it here, right? And at that time, that's kind of when the economy in the U.S. was kind of starting to tank, right? You were losing a lot of equity in your house. And in my field, there was a high unemployment rate. You know, I had colleagues that were working at McDonald's because they couldn't find anything. Yeah. So I'm just like, I came home to the wife and said, well, I'm probably going to lose my job.
Mm.
The only reason we're here is because of that job. So we wanted to take a leap of faith. And
Wow.
she said, yeah, just apply around the world. Anything that looks interesting to you, do it. So I
Wow.
applied for a job for Golder Associates. So this position was in Canada. They flew me out to Canada, Calgary, not your neck of the woods. And they interviewed me and they said, you're overqualified. But we won this contract in New Zealand. Would you be interested in going? I was like,
What?
of course. And then
Wow.
I'm in the plane going back thinking, well, where's New Zealand? I'm a little embarrassed. Here I am with a college education. And geographically, it's like, I know it's kind of an island, but I didn't know kind of exactly where. So I was like, came home. I think I'm going to get a job in New Zealand. So,
What?
and my wife and I are like, nice. Where is it? Oh, it's kind of close to Australia, and it's actually close to Antarctica too. So that kind of changes your perception a little, because half the island's really cold, the other half's pretty sunny.
Oh my word. Well,
Yeah,
that's crazy that that happened, but what an amazing story. And it really shows your adaptability. And even then, in your industry, you have to be adaptable to the challenges that you face. And so
yeah,
being able to experience that, I mean, wow. And like New Zealand's a beautiful place. In your work in New Zealand, I know you have a knack of tackling high stake like problems, within the work in New Zealand. How did navigating those complex projects prepare and help you out? I can imagine even before going to New Zealand, you had to deal with challenges, but specifically with the work there, looking back and reflecting on that, did it help you grow? Maybe it didn't help you grow.
well, New Zealand is a little behind the times. I want to say it's probably 10 to 20 years behind the world in certain things, right?
Mm.
And one of the things is the environmental stuff here. I come in fresh with some ideas of, in the US, they want to clean the site in situ, right? As is, where is. Whereas in New Zealand, it's like, no, we'll just dig it and put it in a landfill. There's no incentive here to do those cleanups in situ. Yeah,
Okay.
because in the US, you'll have cradle to grave policy, which is if you send something to the landfill and the landfill needs to clean up later down the line, they look at all the weight tickets on who sent dirt there and they send them a part of the cleanup bill. So it's a disincentive to send it to a landfill in the US. Whereas here, there's no legislation like that. So it's like, well, why do we want to spend time and effort, right? Because it takes time and effort to clean up a site versus we could just dig it and send it over there and I could build on it the next day.
What?
So, so it's quite neat being here because I'm kind of introducing new ideas and slowly turning the way they think here.
Wow. That must be an honor to be able to do that. And you are great for that job because of your experience in the US and going back, it must have been a blessing to be able to now come over here. And I can imagine you had to learn a lot. There must be a lot of really cool things. I'm a big food guy. Did you try any cool food? Was it cool like trying the amazing new things there, such as the food?
Yeah, but well, you kind of like a lot of cultures have their own specific food, right?
Hmm.
So I come off the plane like, where's the Kiwi food, right? There's really no Kiwi food, because it's very English based, and there's a lot of Chinese here and a lot of
Hmm.
Indians,
Really?
from the coast of India. So it's quite a hodgepodge of, a little of this, a little of that, mix it up. There's New Zealand.
What? That sounds crazy. That just sounds like
Yeah,
here in Canada. We've got a lot of amazing people everywhere. It's crazy. And like this is going to move into like kind of the interesting. This is the cool not the everything's cool about your life, but the very interesting aspect is the acting. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong here. I believe your daughter had some experience in some sort of theatrics, correct? Or am I mistaken?
Correct. And
Okay.
she's actually why I got into acting was of my daughter. So my
And th-
daughter was a drama sociology major
okay.
at university, but even in high school, she really got into acting. Like she did all the plays and stuff like that. And she said, Dad, I want to go into acting a bit. So I want to sign up for an acting agent. So I said, okay, I'll take you. So my wife and I took her. And while we were there, they asked, well, did you guys want to sign up too? And I said, well, sure, why not? What
What?
harm is it going to do? Yeah. So if it wasn't for her, I would have never been in the movie Minecraft.
That's crazy. That's what I was gonna ask. Like, that's like she must have had a major influence. She had a major influence
Full
on your
on.
on your whole decision to try acting. Had acting ever crossed your mind before, or was it just like not at all, like completely out of your mind?
Not really. I'm a pretty good people person. So that's a good skill set in consulting because you
Mhm.
have to kind of talk to clients. First, you got to convince them that you're the right person to hire. And then with complex issues, it's how do you communicate that in something they can understand, right? Like one of the worst things with engineers and scientific consultants is the way they communicate. They communicate in their language. And it's like, oh, yeah, you lost them at
Wow.
the Newton square meter force per area, right? Right. You kind of, when I communicate, it's like analogies, right?
Yeah. Wow.
How good is a model? Well, ideally, I could find a model that an elephant can hang off the cliff with on a flower if the roots are in the right pattern in the rock. But realistically, come on.
Oh my days. And you made a good point there. In consulting, in problem solving, you got to be a people person, and that's what this show has helped me. I used to be really shy, but through this show, throughout the 5 years of doing it, it's helped me learn to improvise, go with the flow, because you never know what the guest is going to say. You never know what you're going to get asked. It's great to be a people person. I wish more people were people persons, but I think if there was that, it'd be very, very, very crazy. It's good to have a mix of personalities there. With the Minecraft movie, you actually were in a TV show prior to that, I believe in 2021. So you did have a project there. Let's start with that. That must was I didn't have a chance to see it. I really wanted to. What was that like? Being on set, was that your first time on set, or had you been on set maybe times before?
I've been on set before, but that's kind of my first featured extra, is
Okay.
what they call it, right? So I
Okay.
actually, the camera was on me solo, right? And in that one, I'm just sitting in a hot tub, right? But I guess one thing I've kind of learned in acting is your attitude, right?
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk, right? And kind of go with the flow, right? Because they're like, hey, we want you to sit in a jacuzzi. Um, you know, here's some bathing suits, and you kind of have a selection. I was like, oh, the speedos, and they're like, oh, would you mind wearing the? They were hope. It was almost like they were hoping I would pick it, right? And I was like, well, absolutely, I'll give anything a go, and they love that, right? And so I'm sitting in the jacuzzi, and I don't say words. It's just they want someone odd that looks odd. Hello, sitting in a jacuzzi. So I'm sitting there, and then I start doing this. Something my dad used to do all the time was like you're milking a cow and water squirts out just on the surface of the water. And so
Oh,
I started doing that, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's what we want."
what? Oh my days. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. That's awesome.
so
That must have been
yeah,
great. I got to experience my first movie set. It was weird. Like again, I've interviewed a lot of people. I hadn't been on a set until back in 2024 in a city near me. They were shooting a baseball movie and they needed a volunteer background people watching. And so went there for 2 days, late until like 12 a.m. It was just sitting there. And as you mentioned, you gotta be really patient. You got to follow instructions well. You have to be adaptable. And so
yeah,
doing that was really great. I got to meet Luke Wilson. And then, as mentioned last week, production assistant. So even that, doing that, I'm like, wow, I've got a fresh new lens. I can now understand and relate your experience, people's experiences. The thing that stood out to me is like, wow, you get on set and you're there for 2 hours, 3 hours, and then they have you come on and then you go. That's it. It's like, wow, just being there for so long. But you've gone through a lot of challenges, ups and downs, so you know how to adapt to those situations. Now, the Minecraft movie. With movies, from my understanding, from what I've learned, usually they don't say the name of it. They kind of give you a fake name and you audition. Tell me a bit about that process. Kind of what happened. Did you know what Minecraft was? Did you learn what happened? Tell me about that.
So my daughter plays Minecraft, but I have no idea. And when you do the audition, they don't tell you, right? So
Right.
I auditioned for a teacher, and actually, it was for a taxi driver too,
Huh.
right? And I guess that got cut out of the movie. But and it's funny because I have a lot of auditions, and it's very rare that I kind of land one, right? And it's not because of your performance. A lot of times it's they're looking for a look, and that's
Yeah.
for your younger viewers, don't get down on yourself because you didn't get the part. A lot of times it's like, no, you actually smashed it, but we just need, like, I'm not going to play Dr. Xavier in the next movie, right? It's not going to work. I might say his line very well, but it's not going to work. It's just something, your audience just needs to keep in mind. So walked away from it, and it's like, maybe I'll get it, maybe I won't. Um, got a call. Hey, actually, you did really well. The director wants to meet you, and this is
No.
Jared Hess. And it
Whoa.
wasn't until I met Jared Hess that I actually find out, oh, it's Minecraft,
Wow.
right? Because they kind of keep it secret for that
Yeah.
long. And then I come home and tell my daughter, and she's like, "Oh my god!" Because her and her friends play Minecraft all the time.
Oh my days. That's crazy. And Jared Hess, like I've actually been trying to get him on my show. I've actually emailed his PR people, have been in touch with them here and there. He's one of my major inspirations, a lot of his films. Had you watched any of his films? Did you end up watching any because you were going to be working with him?
No, well, I looked on which films he did, and Napoleon Dynamite,
Yeah.
saw it, one of my favorite movies. Nacho Libre, saw it, one of my favorite movies. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. This is going to be fun.
That's awesome. I one of my favorites is very it's not like big among all the movies, but Masterminds, one of my favorite ones. It's one of my favorites that he's done. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but the comedy in that one, for some reason, gets me every time. That was so being able to get that experience, you get casted. What was it like being directed by him? I mean, this was probably your first time, not your first time, but one of your first times interacting with somebody like that. What did you first catch from this interaction? Also, your further interactions on set with him.
That's a good question. So it's actually the first time I've actually spoken on film, right? I actually had lines.
Yeah,
And he's very like, these are the lines, but it's more of a guide,
yeah.
How do you feel? So he kind of asks you to put your own personal twist on it too, right? This is kind of the
Really?
message I want to convey. But if you want to, you know, do a little freestyle, so to speak, go for it. But it was really scary, McAuley, because I go there with my 10 lines, my knees are shaking. Okay, you got this, Hiram. Day one of the set, and then they go, by the way, do you have the new script? And I was like, what? They're like, Jared and Chris, one of the main writers, went to dinner last night and kind of had a field day with your character in the script. Here's the new script. and we're going to start filming in about a half hour to an hour.
Oh no.
So I'm just like, whoa, okay, relax, Hiram, you got this.
Oh my days. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. What, if you don't mind me, what was the huge difference between the new one and which one did you prefer?
Oh, well, the new one, because the new one, I'm in several scenes. Like the first one, I'm just in one scene saying, hi, this is Henry. See you later, right?
Yeah.
The second one, they get into the dialogue of the introducing that, you know, I'm in financial crisis and something's going on in my personal life, right? They add a little more onto that, right? Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's just, hi, I'm the teacher. Here's Henry. Sit down.
Wow. And I loved, I don't, I, when I watched that in theaters, I, not gonna lie, I really loved your character. It was because I'm drawn to that type of humor. It's just, it's information that's like, wow, that's like, when you were talking about your situation, like that was hilarious, funny, and it was amazing. I'm so happy that they did that, even though it must have been daunting. Was it stressful studying those new lines? How long did it take for you to do it?
Well, you're kind of learning on the fly, right? So, you know, they gave me the script and they said, hey, if you want to go into Jared's RV, right, for some quiet time, go for it. And I did. And then Jared and Chris came over, probably a half hour later. Hey, how you doing? You got any questions? You want to practice a little bit? They're like, oh, cool, that'll work, right? And of course, it took a couple times to get it right, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that when you're on the film set, it's everything has to be right. So
Yes.
even when you get all your lines right, someone in the background is doing something or walking through that shouldn't be, and they got to retake the whole thing. So it's like, oh,
I can imagine that. And what's really fun about about this role is reading a review online, and there was actually one reviewer that had some great things to say about your character. One person said it's just like a great character. It's like a character that walked straight out of Beavis and Butthead. That's what they actually described. Like, and, that's awesome. Like you're getting noticed. And just today, I looked up, and there's on a Minecraft wiki board, you now have like a spot from your that's got like a whole breakdown of your personality, your character traits, your story, which I'm like, that's so cool. They're going right on that. And so
yeah,
like in this movie, what I thought was really cool is, and spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it, you're actually Clemente. That's really, was that an additional, was that later on that was added, or was that, tell me a little bit about that.
yeah. So yeah, exactly. That interconnection of at the end. Yeah.
That's so cool. And like this is a very fun question. Marlene calls Clemente personality free, like he's got no personality, yet his character's got this whole messy life with lawsuits and all those different things. If you could give Clemente one piece of advice to sort himself out, what would you tell him? What would you give to him?
I would probably say, Clemente, sometimes you need a change of environment to grow and thrive.
Very true, very true. And you know a lot about environment because of your work, but so that would definitely be great advice. And kind of a switch of the conversation. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe your wife does real estate, correct? Or maybe
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
I would love to hear, because that's a whole different world, and you've got your world. I'd love to hear, how would you say she's helped you grow? Because real estate's big customer base as well too, and client base as well. Has she been able to help you grow within your craft, whether it be in environmental consulting or anything else? I'm really curious.
I would say yes, because she deals with more New Zealanders.
Okay.
So she'll come home and tell me some of the experiences and maybe some of the cultural differences.
Okay.
So when I meet a client, you know, it preps me for it,
Wow.
So for instance, if I'm going to meet someone from a certain culture, I'm not going to order bacon or steak.
That's very true.
right? Because it's offensive. There's all
Yeah.
these little subtleties, right? Like, you know, some cultures like the number eight. So, okay, that's good to know. If I'm going to meet that client, I will make sure my proposal ends in an eight.
That's so true.
$100.88.
That's awesome. Well, it must be really good to have that extra eyes there, that extra support there. And it's very relational based in that industry. One question I had is you mentioned that life's too short not to chase what you want, which kind of feels like a mantra for your whole journey. I mean, you've done so much. Looking back, what's one what if moment from your life, big or small, where you took a chance, and how does it connect to you where you are now? I know you mentioned specifically you took a chance and went to New Zealand, but was there anything else that specifically stood out to you within your life?
No, New Zealand was the biggest one because in New Zealand, the employment contracts is a 3 month probation.
Mhm.
Okay. So coming to New Zealand, selling the house, everything there, coming here and really nothing to go back to. And in 3 months, our stuff hasn't even got here yet from
Wow.
the US, right? It's still ocean bound on a crate, has to go through customs for a few cities. So, when we get here, it's just like, oh my God, 3 month probation. What if I don't make it? What's going to happen? Our stuff's not even here. Where do I go?
Wow.
And to bring my wife and my daughter over, who was 9 years old at the time,
Wow.
to me, it was almost like, okay, this is how they did it in the old days, though, right?
Right.
The explorers, the people that came to, from England to New Zealand, or even, from England to the US, right? Those early settlers, they just roll the dice and see what happens. So yeah,
Wow.
that was pretty scary. I must say it's one of my scariest moments in that leap of faith, McAuley.
It's very true. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm again very, very happy that you were able to get yourself out of that predicament that you mentioned earlier in our conversation and find yourself where you're at now, because it sounds like you're amazing at what you do and you are amazing at what you do. And I'm also very happy to have seen you in the recent film. And I'd love to see you in some more projects. Since I watched that film and since I saw that just, the moment that you were on screen, I would love to see you in more projects. Because when I saw that, I'm like, oh, this guy must be like, he must be in all these different things. And when I did my research, I'm like, wow, I'd love to see some more projects under your belt. And I know things are a lot often top secret. I know that from my experience. What sort of projects can we expect to see from you, whether it be specifically on the screen or through your work that you're doing?
Well, since the Minecraft, there has been a little more opportunities coming my
Okay.
way. So we'll see how that goes. I can't say much for that, but you might see me in something else.
Wow. Well, I'm really, really excited for that because you are amazing at what you do. And I'd love to see you in some more things. Specifically, like I think I don't know, comedy, that bit in the Minecraft movie, amazing. This is kind of sidetracking. Do you enjoy comedy? Or do you actually gravitate towards a different genre?
No, I love comedy. Like I laugh a lot. Laughter is the key to life. I'm much older than I look, and I will attribute that to laughter.
That's very true. That's very true. Well, I'm very happy to hear about that. And one final question: meeting the cast and the crew on the Minecraft movie. I remember you sharing some photos about that. What was that like? We with my experience, I get to sit in calls with some amazing people, and it can be sometimes crazy to hold back the fan. I've come to realize that the actors are very talented people that have a very special job. And but what was that like meeting them? What did they have to say, and what did you enjoy the most about that?
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, that's a great question, McCauley. So the first actor I met was Jack Black, and it's like, oh my God, Jack Black! Oh, wait, hold on, Hiram. Don't jump on them too soon. Just kind of talk to, hey, play the cool guy. Hey, how you doing? What do you like to do? Da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, I want to get a selfie with him. How do I get a selfie with him? And I was like, well, don't ask him. So I started talking about Jumanji because I thought, oh, I know. Hiram Garcia
Yes.
is the other Hiram Garcia from The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. I was like, oh, he did Jumanji, and he worked with him. So I was like, Jack, or hey, Jack, Dwayne has Hiram Garcia. You could actually text Dwayne and tell him you have your own Hiram Garcia. And he goes, oh, and I could see him texting, right? And then he looks at me and he goes, do you mind if I take a selfie with you? I was like, oh my gosh. Jack Black is going to take a selfie with me. Absolutely. And of course, when he did, I was like, well, do you mind if I take a selfie with you? He's like, no, go for it. Yeah. Yeah. And he is so cool. Like he takes his time to make sure he knows everyone's name that he meets.
Wow.
Which is really cool. And I mean everyone he bumps into, like even the people building the set, not the guy behind the camera, the guy, the 10th guy who brings coffee to the guy who brings the coffee to the director, right?
Wow.
Which is amazing, because when he says, hi, John, the guy's like, wow, you can just see that change in their face. So that's really cool about Jack.